Happy game day and welcome to week 13 of the Roto Pros DFS pre-lock show. I'm Chris Durrell. I'm here with Josh Cronfeld. How you doing this morning, Josh?
What's up, Chris? Doing well, doing well. Nice 13 games today. Looking forward to it. All right. Good to hear you're doing well too.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're both kind of away from home doing this from different ends of the continents, but doing good, getting ready to go over these 13 games. So what we're going to do here today is go game by game, give you a couple plays from each of us that we're targeting. And if you got questions, make sure to hit us up in the chat box over there to the right of the video, and we'll go through those questions as we go throughout the show. If we kind of hit a question that we haven't touched on that game yet, just stay patient. We'll probably answer that question. If we don't, I'll make sure to answer it in the chat window as well. And then after the show, make sure to hit us up in the Roto Pros community chat, where we will be there until lineup lock. And if you're not a member yet, make sure to get over to rotopros.com. And in the top right-hand corner, you can click the sign-up button where you get a free 2-week trial, which most importantly gives you access to that premium chat community where we offer one-on-one coaching, cheat sheets, videos, articles, lineup skeletons, and so much more. You won't be disappointed. Okay, let's get into the picks. With the bye weeks wrapped up, we have 13 games again on the main slate. And of those 13 games, there's only 3 with a Vegas total of 50 more and 5 with 48 or more. So kind of some low scoring. The chalk might hit on those higher games, but there's definitely a lot of plays if you're a GPP player that you can pivot to today, and some values to kind of make those high-end running backs go. So we'll just jump right in here and go to the first game. We've got Baltimore at Atlanta. So for my
background noise, do you hear? Am I okay?
No, yeah, you're good.
Okay, sorry. Keep
good
going.
to go. Sound beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
So we've got Baltimore at Atlanta. The first game going off today at 1 p.m. Eastern. And for myself, I guess I'll go to the Baltimore side of things. And with Alex Collins placed on the IR, that makes me even like the I guess you call it the run pass option, zone spread, whatever you like to call it. There was Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards. They've been running the ball like crazy lately, and now they face an Atlanta team that is bottom 5 in the league against the run. So they're both still pretty cheap. Lamar Jackson, 5,900 on DraftKings, so definitely liking that this week. And then Gus Edwards, he's had 100 or more yards total in 2 straight games that he's been the starter. So definitely on that. Who you liking in this matchup?
In my regular fantasy league this week, I needed a running back because I had Melvin Gordon who's down, and I win this week and I lock up a first-round bye in my playoffs. The reason I even bring this up is because one of the guys I was looking at early in the week was Ty Montgomery. It's a PPR league, and I personally think that this Baltimore game script will most likely favor Baltimore having to come from behind a little bit and throw the ball. But it is definitely a GPP option to go with the Gus Edwards, Lamar Jackson type lineup this week, because if Baltimore does in fact get ahead, like you said, I'm sure the game plan will be, Atlanta's been very soft against the run. They can't tackle. So I'm sure Baltimore's game plan will be to start out running if possible. So if in fact they do get an early lead, then it will be a really, really good game for Gus Edwards and Lamar, and they'll probably just run as much as they can just to keep Matt Ryan and the Falcons offense off the field. But, that being said, Joe Flacco isn't starting, but he should be dressed today. And a lot of people are saying that if Lamar Jackson wins this game and he's 3-0 with them, then it's going to be pretty hard to take him out of the starting spot until he makes, some big mistakes. On this side of things, I don't really think I'm too interested on the fantasy side. Ty Montgomery would be someone I would consider a GPP option, but and same with Gus Edwards, but they also called up Kenneth Dixon this week. They activated him from the IR because of Collins going down. So I really don't know what Harbaugh's thinking. I want to see what he does before I trust them in my lineups. And Baltimore's defense has been great, so I'm not really too on Julio or Matt Ryan this week.
Yeah, and Gus Edwards is actually questionable. He's likely to play this week. I'm not really worried about that.
I genuinely think they're going to split carries between all 3 of those running backs today.
Yeah, for sure. So that kind of covers. We've got a question here. Deion Jones back for the Falcons D, so that kind of makes a little bit of an impact on the running game a little bit.
That's a sharp question. I like Deion Jones a lot, and we talked about him a few weeks ago, but I think he's finally healthy now.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on is one of those games of the 50 total. We got Carolina at Tampa Bay. I think it's a 55.5 Vegas total. I kind of went Carolina happy in my cash game article this week. I love Cam Newton at his price against this Tampa Bay defense. I talked about Christian McCaffrey in my cash game article. He's just been, I think he's got 9 touchdowns the last 5 games. He had 100 total passing and receiving yards both last week. So he's been hitting in all areas. I like stacking those two together because it kind of gives you access to almost 100% of the Carolina scoring versus one of the worst defenses in the league. And then for GPPs, I even wrote them up for cash games, but I don't think you're going to be able to get all 3 together. I mean, you probably could, but his price is coming up is DJ Moore. He's been getting a lot of the target share in the passing game lately, and he's looked pretty good doing it. Pretty explosive player, 17 targets, and he's actually in the last 2 games, and he's actually caught 15 of them for about 250, 240 something yards, something like that, with a touchdown. So he's been smashing. The price is going up, but I think there's still room there where he can hit value. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, no, totally. I think this will be one of the more highly owned games of the week, rightfully so. Cam suffered a little bit from the blowout nature of their last time these teams met. They didn't really need him to throw too much in the second half. They controlled the game very well. But that was Fitzpatrick's last start, I believe, or he was at least starting at the time. So I expect it to be a different story today with Jameis. He's looked very good in the past couple weeks. He's settled back in as the starter. This game's being played in Tampa Bay. Obviously, I like it a lot. I like Jameis and I like Cam. I think Cam will outscore Jameis, but I give a slight bump to Jameis for his price. Both of them I love for cash and GPP both. I'm big time on Humphreys and Godwin today because Deshaun Jackson's missing out. Plus, we all saw what Humphreys did last time they played. Carolina is very weak defending slot receiver. And Jameis has really developed a nice rapport with Humphreys lately in the past couple of weeks, it looked like. So 4,200, I'm all over him. Chris Godwin, 3,900, same deal. I think they're both going to be involved in 2 and 3 receiver sets today with Deshaun Jackson being out. And, Carolina's, at least last time, chose to focus more on shutting down Mike Evans, which allowed the other 2 guys to kind of sneak free. I think Greg Olson's also a great play today. DJ Moore for sure. His price is sneaking up, but and Devin Funchess is back today, but I'm reading that he's going to be limited and be on a snap count. So, we could see him maybe come in red zone packages or just be a decoy, something like that. But I like DJ Moore, but I'm not all over him in cash. I feel Torrey Smith's back, Curtis Samuel's there. Like Carolina really spreads the ball around sometimes, and DJ Moore didn't really do much against Tampa last time, and I'm not saying that's the reason he's not going to do anything again, because he's definitely been Cam's guy the past couple weeks, and I think it's safe to say he's becoming their number 1 receiver for the hopefully years to come for them. But yeah, and then Christian McCaffrey, of course, he's a great play, but for me personally, I think I'm going to be staying off of him in cash. There's just a lot of people there in Carolina, and last week, at home, they were pretty much in control of the game. They could do whatever they wanted, run, pass, whatever. They really had – would they play again? Who was it?
Last week for Carolina?
Yeah.
Carolina last week was Seattle.
Yeah, so they had Seattle completely off balance the whole game. Just so they could just that's a recipe for McCaffrey to go crazy, especially with people like Funchess being out. I just think all the stars aligned last week for McCaffrey, and I think he's still a good play, and especially with his PPR, like he'll probably hit value today for sure, but I definitely don't think he's just going to go for 40, 50, even 30 again today. So we'll see what happens, and that's kind of a hot take because I know I'm definitely not the majority on that. I'm sure plenty of people, including you, which are totally on McCaffrey, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I just think there are cheaper options this week that will either match his output or come pretty close.
And one player we didn't touch on, mentioned in chat here, and one player I did have highlighted on my sheet is Cameron Brate is a cheap tight end. Carolina hasn't been that great against tight ends, so he's definitely a player I'm looking at as well, especially with a lot of the chalk going towards some of these other tight ends we'll talk about when we get to that game. But Eric Ebron's going to be probably one of the chalkiest tight ends out there. And
I kind of agree with that, but that's is a lot. We haven't really said it this season, but this is a good tight end week, kind of.
It is. Finally,
like it's crazy. There's literally guys I like at every K. 2K, 3K, 4K. It's nice.
Yep. So
I don't really like Travis Kelce this week just because of the game flow, but we can get to that later.
Yeah, for sure. So the next game we got is Chicago at the Giants. Chicago's a -3.5-point favorite, one of the lowest totals, 44.5 on the week. Trubisky's going to be out, so Chase Daniel's going to be back under center. Nothing I really like on the Chicago side when it comes to offense. Maybe Tariq Cohen just as a like a dump off option, but no one's really stood out there for me. Allen Robinson's been kind of a disappointment so far this year. Anthony Miller's someone, he's still fairly cheap. His price came up quite a bit last week, but it's only gone up 100 here this week. He hasn't really gotten the target share, but he has shown some upside, so I guess you could use him as a GPP play. But for me, it's mostly Chicago defense. And I guess on the GPP side of things, if you really want to go that way, I don't mind Odell Beckham Jr. with some upside, obviously, on the other side. He just seems a little bit too cheap, under 8K on DraftKings, and I get that they're doing that pricing just because they're up against the Chicago, probably, elite defense in the league. So I understand that, and I think people may get away from that, so he could be a little bit on the under-owned side. Your thoughts?
I like Chase I didn't do this on Thanksgiving personally because I didn't have enough funds at the time to really play as many lineups as I wanted, but I really like Chase Daniel for GPP. He's just I love it these days when you can get mid for quarterback, if you can get a guy below 5K that you're pretty confident is going to hit value, that's cool. That allows you to do some stuff, with the lineup and stand out a little bit in GPP and just build lineups that are a little, off the map and, not the same as every other pro and person out there, who's just stacking the highest total, which is good to have also. But I like Chase Daniel today. I'll probably pair him with Tariq Cohen in one lineup or Taylor Gabriel. He's 4,200. He's pretty cheap. Him and Mitch have looked decent together. They have a little bit of a rapport. And the Giants have obviously been weak in the second cornerback position. I like Saquon, to be honest. He's very cheap. He's been priced down because of the Bears, which I think is correct because their D is insane. And I think the Giants O-line doesn't really stand a chance today against Khalil Mack. But Saquon's going to get a million dump offs from literally because Eli is going to be under pressure so much. Saquon's probably going to have 8 or 9 receptions today minimum. And the Giants give him everything around the goal line, so 7,900 is too cheap. I'll definitely have maybe even in my Chase Daniel lineup with maybe I'll go naked Chase, and I want to have one lineup with Saquon, Gurley, and maybe even CMC as well. Just for shits because there's a lot of 3K guys today. We'll get into it later, but Chris Conley, he's a little risky because of the game flow, but he's 3,700, something like that. I like Marcel Aitman. He's same price. So you can do some stuff today and have some fun GPP lineups, and I think Chase Daniel's a part of that.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at Fanshare Sports and some of their tag counts for ownership purposes, a lot of the industry seems to agree on Saquon Barkley being too cheap because he's looking at a projection of somewhere around 18 to 25% ownership, kind of up there in the top 3, top 4 running backs. And it makes sense. If they're going to be under pressure, they're going to dump it off. So I fully agree there. And then back to my Odell Beckham there. He's a player I think is going to be super low owned in that game. He's only got 7 tags versus a lot of guys Thielen's got 39 tags. So I think he's going to be 5% or less owned. So GPP, and then I think Barkley's even just at his price makes sense even for if you want to go that way in cash games as well, just because of the way the game flow is going to work. Like you said, he's going to get, I think, 10 to 15 targets today just because of the pressure he's going to be under. So totally buy into what you said there. Moving on to a less than exciting matchup here. Probably not a lot to talk about. Buffalo at Miami. I'll let you start this one off. Is there anyone in this game that you are looking at?
Buffalo has a very elite pass defense, so you're probably going to see Miami looking to establish the run today. So people like Frank Gore, and Frank Gore is way too cheap. He's 3,600. He's a good GPP option. He's going to get you 15 touches today. Maybe more if Miami does what they expect to and gets an early lead. But another guy that I think is the ultra GPP option that I'm actually kind of a fan of today is Kenny Stills. They have a ton of injuries. I'm not sure if Amendola is even going to end up going. But Stills has been really frustrated lately. Obviously, because of Tannehill missing a couple weeks, that Tannehill's his boy, and Brock Osweiler just sucks. So, that was a little unfortunate, but it was justifiable and understandable why he didn't have a great couple weeks under that. But Tannehill's been back now, and Stills has been throwing the ball 5 times or something crazy in like 5 weeks. So he finally said, you know, this is a receiver in his prime, and he's pissed off. He's one of the best deep threats in the NFL when he's got to, you know, when they're using him the right way. And he said this week that, you know, he doesn't understand what's going on. And then, you know, guys talk all the time, but their head coach on Thursday, Adam Gase, said the same thing to reporters. And he said, I don't know, you know, we got to get him the ball more. So he said he's going to make a conscious effort to do it. The guy's 3,700. And even though it's a difficult matchup, when you have a coach and a player and the team just actively like all working together to get one guy the ball, you know, for that cheap of a price, it's worth the GPP risk, in my opinion.
Cool. And on my side, one player you didn't mention, probably the only player I'm looking at in this game for Buffalo. He's kind of seen the target share here lately. Not a whole bunch, I mean, but he's been done something with them. He's very explosive as Robert Foster. He's only like the target share was off there. He only had seen 7 targets in his last 2 games that he's played here, but he's caught 5 of them for 199 yards and a touchdown. So he's very explosive. He's at a 47-yarder, 75-yarder. So he's got the speed and the explosiveness in this offense. Miami's a tough matchup, of course. They've been pretty good on the back end, but I think he's going to be like 1% owned. So if you're looking for a punt play in GPPs to maybe fit 2 of those top running backs in, or even with a third player and get a top wide receiver in there, he's another one of those punt plays that can tie it all together this week.
Yep,
and
100%.
Moving on, we've got Denver Broncos at Cincinnati, and that game we're looking at a 45 over-under, so another lower one. Denver is the favorite here at -5. So A.J. Green's back, so I think that helps Tyler Boyd, and his price has kind of come down since he was kind of the lead guy, and his price went up where it spiked kind of over that 7K range. He was in the mid-7K range there on DraftKings for a bit, so he's back down in the low 6K range, and he's been better with A.J. Green in the lineup just because A.J. Green's going to take, of course, the top coverage out there. So I think it makes a little bit of sense to get some Tyler Boyd in your lineups. More GPP for me. He's close with his price coming down to becoming one of those, you know, a cash game consideration, but mostly for me is going to be GPP, especially with Andy Dalton out for the year, because we're looking at Jeff Driskel, and he's going to run a lot. So I think we might see some similarities to what Baltimore's offense is going to be with that zone read. So I think that, for me at least, brings Joe Mixon into play. I think he's going to get just that, being that Driscoll's a really good runner, I think that draws some of the defense, you know, to kind of spy him. And I think that's going to give Joe Mixon some opportunities. Probably going to see in that 15 to 20 rush range. And I think he can get over 100 total yards for sure today. So he's kind of my favorite player in this game. The Denver side, I'm not really looking at anything. Anybody else I maybe didn't mention there that you're liking out of this game?
Yeah, Denver probably has one of my favorite GPP plays of the day. He's a name that I personally never heard of before last week, but the Denver tight end is a guy named Matt Lacoste. He's filling in for Jeff Hoyerman, who's going to miss the rest of the season. I'm a big Lacoste fan. He came in last week when Hoyerman went down, caught his first career touchdown, 3 catches, 34 yards on 4 targets, and a TD against the Steelers. Cincinnati is the worst team, second worst team in the NFL against the tight end position. He's 2,500 on DraftKings, so I'm all over this guy today in GPP.
Right on. So that kind of covers that game. So the next game up is.
Oh, no, sorry, I like Philip Lindsay too for his price.
Oh yeah, how do we skip over him? He's I think he's even cash game worthy here this week for sure. He's taken over as the lead back. He's kind of pushed Royce Freeman right out of the way and said, "This is my backfield."
Yeah,
and he catches the ball well too. He didn't get any targets last week, but they were winning that game. So they were up there. So he didn't, you know, he only got 14 carries, but he's rushing for like 5+ yards per carry like every single game almost, and he's got that touchdown upside. So yeah, definitely agree there. And he's mid 5K price range, just makes a ton of sense.
One of the lessons I've learned playing DFS over the years is that, especially with football, and it changes week to week depending on many things, where the value is, the matchups, you know, a lot of things. But if you can identify, and usually this is between the wide receivers versus the running backs, on DraftKings is what I'm talking about in particular. You can identify the 4 to 5K guys. Sometimes it's the receivers, sometimes it's the running backs that are going to do the same points-wise, production-wise, as the 7, 8K guys at that position, and then you stack up on the expensive guys in whatever the other position is, you're looking at a hell of a week in DraftKings. And was I clear with that? Did you understand what I meant?
100%.
Like, for example, this week, I think Spencer Ware, 4K, and we'll obviously get into him later. Philip Lindsay, 5,400. There's a bunch of other guys around there, too. Just mid 5K running backs. Dion Lewis, Chris Carson, Tarek Cohen, Matt Breida. There's a ton of guys in 5K ranges who I wouldn't be shocked if they literally performed very similarly to Christian McCaffrey, David Johnson, Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb. Aaron Jones is another guy I really like, but even he's 6,700. So, versus this week where you're looking at guys like Tyreek Hill, Adam Thielen, who are the 8 or 9K receivers who are probably going to do significantly better than the 5K guys, such as Tyler Lockett, Allen Robinson. There's a couple 5Ks I like. You get the point of what I'm saying.
100%. Well said, my friend.
That's how you stand out in GPPs.
Yep. That's a lesson for you all right there. Awesome. Worth the price of admission right there.
Absolutely.
So moving on, I want to ask you, this is one of the top projected scoring games of the day. We got the Rams at Detroit, 55.5. The Rams are huge 10-point favorites. Obviously, Todd Gurley is going to be chalky in this just because, Detroit has been awful against running backs, awful, just pretty much all of them. They've been a little bit better against the pass, but altogether just a kind of a brutal defense. So Todd Gurley's obviously the chalk here if you're paying up for running back. But other than Todd Gurley, who in this game do you like?
I'll be honest with you. Todd Gurley is definitely chalk and good for cash games. But I personally don't. I think when you play Detroit, if you're a coach, you're trying to beat them through the air. That's where they're vulnerable. And if anything, they're above average now that they picked up Damon Harrison from the Giants in defending the run. So for the same reasons we just talked about and all the cheaper running backs I like this week, I'm not really on Todd Gurley. But for argument's sake, I like Goff, like I just said, for those exact reasons. And one of my main guys is Josh Reynolds this week. He's taken over for Cooper Kupp in the slot full-time. We're going to see what's his face? Slay is going to be probably on either Woods or Cooks today. So look for whoever Slay is not guard. Let's pretend Slay's on Woods.
I think that's the case.
Yeah, look for Cooks and Reynolds to have bigger days. Obviously, Cooks is 7K and Reynolds is 4,900. So pretty obvious who I would prefer in that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I will say this, though. Aqib Talib's back, and I don't think the Rams' defense is as bad as people may think. They're not quite like the Chiefs, who just literally they know they're going to outscore you, so they don't really care how the defense performs. The Rams are just a little bit, they still have Aaron Donald, who could be the freaking MVP of the league. Sue, Aqib Talib, they have a serious, Jason Peters, they have an insane defense, a lot of stars. So, and then, couple that with the fact that the Lions O-line has been miserable. I'm definitely on the Rams side of this game. And I guess that's more of a reason to like Gurley because they'll probably have a late lead. So I do think Gurley will end up being okay. But I see Gurley coming in late 20s this week with points and just scratching value on DraftKings, where I think you can get, 4, 5, 6x value from, 5K guys.
Yep. No, 100% agree with you there. And then on the Detroit side, they're going to have to do something today because I think they're going to be down early and often.
For that reason?
Yeah, he's going to be highly owned, which kind of scares me a little bit, especially like you said, Talib's coming back. So I agree with you that they are a better defense than they have shown here lately, giving up a ton of yards through the air. So I think that's a big improvement for them. And they don't really have any other wide receivers that they're throwing to. Because Marvin Jones, obviously he's out for the season. Bruce Ellington's even questionable this week. So there's TJ Jones. So for me, I guess if you want to pivot, I wrote up Galladay, and I do like that he's getting all the targets in the offense. He's not his catch rate, I think over the last 2 or 3 weeks is around 50 to 55%, which is kind of scary. But he is getting the volume, and volume is everything, especially when you're looking at cash games. But I think maybe you want to go away from it, especially Kerryon Johnson's out again. I do like Theo Riddick at his price, just kind of as a GPP guy, kind of in the sense, not comparing him to Saquon Barkley by any means, but I think he's going to get a lot of dump offs today. He's not really that big of an explosive player, but I think he's probably going to get he's been getting 6, 7, 8 targets every single week and catching almost every single one of them. So I think there is a floor there. So if you're looking for even a cash game fill-in at a cheap price, I think he makes sense if you're going away from Galladay.
I got a question for you.
Coverage. Yeah.
What do you think about Jeff Driskel today as a GPP quarterback?
Yeah. We talked about him a little bit running, so I think, the last 2 weeks I've ran some stacks with Lamar Jackson and Gus Edwards in that kind of zone read kind of offense. So at his price, like 4,500 on DraftKings here, I think running Driskel and Mixon together, I think you can combine for, I'm not going to say 200. That's probably their ceiling. I think you could get 200 yards rushing between them. But, the floor, I think, is probably like 120 to 150 yards rushing between them at with Driskel's price and Mixon being, just down.
You look decent last week throwing the ball.
Yeah. So I think there's a floor there running those two together. And I mean, with the savings that you get, like you said before, you can get in, 2 or 3 elite players in your lineup, putting those guys together. So yeah, I'm on board with that in some GPPs. I'm probably going to run out some Driskel stacks. Yeah. So moving on, we did have a question in this game. Been waiting to get to. We got Arizona at Green Bay. Green Bay with a loss to Minnesota last week. Skol Vikings. They're kind of down and out, and Rodgers came out and said they pretty much have to win out the rest of the year to have a chance. To even have a chance at playoffs, probably going to need some help there as well. So I like Green Bay in a smash spot here this week to just seem like they're going to be, in one of those spots where they're just going to be mad. Rodgers is going to come out and kill them. I mean, they're minus 14-point favorites at home. I like the Green Bay defense in this game. Get some Aaron Jones in there as well, rushing the ball. He's taken over as the clear lead guy for Green Bay. And on the Arizona side, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a great spot for David Johnson. He's not going to – I can't see him rushing the ball more than like 12 times because I think they're going to be down. Green Bay's been pretty good against the run this year. So, yeah, it's pretty much like Aaron Rodgers, Jones, Green Bay defense, and Devontae Adams for me. What say you?
I'm big time on Aaron Jones. And I think that was good analysis, first of all. That's why I was quiet during it. But Aaron Jones, Packers defense, obviously a good combo. Devontae Adams, like he's someone who I've avoided a lot this year, literally because I keep going like, if they're playing the Cardinals at home, like they're not going to need to throw. Like they'll probably, win pretty easily. But like every time I do that, he's one of the better performers on the slate. And he's just a guy that you can really rely on for, 6-7 catches, a touchdown. He's absurd in the red zone. Like I watched a SportsCenter thing on him once. On just like, apparently he's arguably the best player in the league at getting separation in the red zone from like 10 yards out or 15 yards out or even 5 yards out. He's just got absurd route running and like moves. So the Packers know that, and when like a team like literally looks to target a guy like that every time they get in the red zone, usually it's a tight end or something. But when you know that about a guy, I like Devontae Adams a lot. I think I guess you could call him a GPP play this week because of the guys around him. Mike Evans will catch more attention because of his game situation today and the over/under, and then Odell will catch more attention because of the name, him being a little too cheap because of the matchup. But when you have guys like that sandwiched around you, they tend to get overlooked. So I bet you Adams is definitely under 10% in GPPs today. And Aaron Jones will be one of the more popular plays, Aaron Jones in the Packers D. I don't care about how popular it is because it's sharp. But I don't really have any interest in David Johnson. I don't really have any interest in Larry Fitz. I don't trust them. And unless you're playing, the Millie and you want to literally cover every game, I'm not stacking anyone on Arizona.
For sure. Feel the same way. The one thing I did like about the Green Bay defense that stood out to me this week is that they're right near the top of the league when you're looking at sacks, which I believe that gives you a floor. They got 32 sacks on the year, or 36 sacks on the year, which is third best. And then the other thing that I like for GPPs, just adding to the overall value of liking them, is that they have 22 opponent giveaways. Sorry, their takeaways are a little bit down, but Arizona gives the ball away quite a bit, 22 on the year. And then looking at the adjusted sack rates, Green Bay's D-line is 5th, while Arizona's offensive line is 22nd. So that kind of stood out to me. But, yeah, moving on, the next game on the slate, we've got Cleveland coming off 2 wins in a row, which I believe was the first time since like week 13 in 2014. They've won 2 games in a row. So they're kind of riding a high right now. They're going into Houston. Houston is a 5.5-point home favorite here, 47.5 total. And just kind of looking at the defenses here, Cleveland looks like they've got a tough matchup. Houston's been very good against quarterbacks, wide receivers. They have been a kind of a sieve to tight end, so I definitely like David Njoku in this spot today. That's really kind of the only thing for Cleveland I'm looking at, maybe Baker Mayfield for GPPs, but it just seems like his ceiling maybe isn't where we want it. And I mean, if they're going to be shutting down his wide receivers, I'm really just on Njoku for this game. And then on the Houston side, I mean, he's been running the ball really good. Lamar Miller lately, he's kind of almost crushed me out of the playoffs in my fantasy last week. I won by like less than 2 points in one of my big leagues, so was kind of happy, but it was a sweat throughout the entire game there. But Cleveland's been, outside rank of 20th in fantasy points against quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and running back. So I think there is a few spots for Houston you can get. DeAndre Hopkins always makes sense. I mean, he's questionable every week because they kind of watch his practice times, but don't ever worry about that. He always gets in there and he pretty much crushes value every single week. He's another one of those high-end wide receivers that may be a little bit lower owned. Maybe not, but he speaking of value, I mean, he's shown his 30-point upside on DraftKings and FanDuel as well, but the last 2 weeks he's been down a little bit, so and the price has gone up. So I think maybe that may help with the ownership a little bit if you want to go DeAndre Hopkins and GPPs.
Yeah, again, I think Adam Thielen is $200 cheaper and he'll be much more popular today. I think rightfully so, but Hopkins always has the ability to just be the highest scorer on the slate. So especially at home and all that. And this could be a sneaky shootout. I mean, Houston's been playing so well that I don't expect them to really need to have their foot on the gas late in the game. But Cleveland's fun now, man. They believe in themselves. They have good coaching. They believe in Mayfield. They're a fun team to watch. I'm happy for them. I really am. So Hopkins is a good play. Maybe this is a shootout. Maybe Cleveland gets an early lead, and Baker Watson, and they need to throw. Kuti's probably going to play, but he keeps getting banged up every week. And Demaryius Thomas is definitely, he's a good play. He's pretty cheap and
touchdown upside.
Yeah, a lot of touchdown upside, and obviously Hopkins is the guy. But one guy I also like in this is potentially Njoku for GPP. Houston doesn't do well against the tight end.
Yeah. So moving on, we've got the last game of the early slate. We've got Indianapolis at Jacksonville. It looked like we had some injury news there for Jacksonville, Jalen Ramsey, but he's now likely to play with a knee injury. He's probably not going to be 100%. And I think just a lot of people that maybe not be watching the injury will see Jalen Ramsey going up against T.Y. Hilton and maybe avoid him. So I think T.Y. Hilton and Luck make a good pairing this week against a tough Jacksonville defense. But Luck has shown, I think it's 8 straight weeks now with 3 or more touchdowns. And he's shown that he can throw the long ball. I think he's averaging over 9 yards per attempt, where he was around that 6 to 7 range early in the season. So, he's got his long ball back. And I think this is a good GPP spot for them. On the Jacksonville side of things, Fournette is going to be out. I think we can maybe find some value in Yeldon. I guess that would be a question for you. Do you like Yeldon or Hyde this week?
I like Yeldon more than Hyde, just because of the PPR. But I don't really like either of them very much, to be honest. I don't know what to expect from this game at all. I don't know at all. I don't like it. But it could be sneaky. It's a good GPP stack because the Colts put up a lot of points. So, I've seen a lot of guys take down GPPs. Usually the game's in Indianapolis when this is the case. But I've seen a couple people stack Colts games this year when all the other focus is on things like Tampa Bay and potentially, St. Louis. Not St. Louis. The Rams today, LA. So this will be sneaky, and the ownership will be absurdly low, especially on, D.D. Westbrook is someone I like on the Jaguars. Not tremendously, but I think you're right about Luck for sure. I was very worried about him early in the year, but now I genuinely consider him back to being like an above average quarterback. But they just have so many guys to spread the ball out to. I kind of like Naheem Hines this week as a bit of a GPP, but actually, I don't know. I think Marlon Mack's fine. The Jaguars hit really hard, man. Marlon Mack's semi-concussed. He'll play, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gets knocked out of this game.
Good spot for Hines at 4,100.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm not really into that, but more about Ebron, I guess. So what? You're not really in on him?
Well, not the chalk. Whenever chalk Ebron, it just seems like he crushes people when he's super chalky, and he was a lot. He seems to play. I mean, the amount of snaps that he gets out there, not a whole bunch when Doyle's in the lineup. But what they'll do is they'll spread Ebron out kind of into the slot as, like kind of a hybrid wide receiver. And that seems to be where he gets most of his, touchdowns and stuff. I guess he's like top 5 in the league in red zone targets, tied for first in touchdowns. So it's going to be hard to get away from him at 4,200. But GPPs, I'm definitely going to make some pivots away from Ebron just in his high ownership because I hate to say that he's inconsistent, but with that touchdown upside, but he's very touchdown reliant. I feel he's only had over 50 yards like 3 times this season so far since week 1. So he's not really getting that yard. So if he's not scoring touchdowns for you, you kind of need him to score, 2 touchdowns almost to hit GPP value. So he's a player that, I'll probably pivot away in GPPs just to, for 1, to get away from the ownership, and then 2, just to find some upside in other players in other games, maybe a little bit easier matchups than Jacksonville.
I think that's valid.
Cool. And then jumping over, we got the Jets at Tennessee. Another, I don't know, not too exciting game. It's got the lowest total of the week at 40. Tennessee is a 9-point favorite. I don't know if I can trust Derrick Henry or Dion Lewis really in this game, but it seems like it sets up nice for one of them to get, a lot of rushes. But the fact that they just keep splitting time really keeps me away. And the Jets have actually they've given up. They're about middle of the league when it comes to their 16th overall fantasy points against running back. Don't like the Jet side of things really at all. Maybe Robbie Anderson as a GPP dart there, touchdown upside for him because both teams, they're tied for 29th. They're ranked 29th in fantasy points against wide receivers. Corey Davis is kind of the one that I'm looking at, my key player in this game. Maybe stack him with Mariota if you want in some GPP stacks. I think that's going to be a low-owned way to go with a lot of other chalk out there that we already discussed. Anything that you like that stands out to you?
Just Corey Davis. That's it. Maybe Jonnu Smith for a GPP, but I like Lacoste more.
Cool. And then the big game.
Too cheap because he was on the primetime slate.
Yeah. And then one of the highest scoring totals here, we're looking at a lot of scoring going on. Probably some players to look at here is Kansas City, 14-point favorites going into Oakland, 55.5 game total there. Like KC's got like a 30, 35 points, projected points here this week. So the big news was Kareem Hunt is he was kind of suspended, put on the commissioner's exempt list for that video that came out from February. He's now been released. So Spencer Ware is like the slate chalk player. He's going to get a lot of run, I think, here this week. Is Spencer Ware someone? I think he makes sense to use in cash at his price. Is he someone that you're maybe fading in GPPs, or is it just like lock Spencer Ware in and move on?
I will lock him in every lineup I have today. I don't think the Chiefs are really going to mess around and try out like 4 different running backs. I think there's another guy, Darrell Williams, not Damian, but Darrell, who will end up stealing most of the pass catching or some of the pass catching third down work. But Spencer Ware can do everything that Hunt was doing. He's maybe not quite as physical, but he totally has the ability to be a 3-down back, and he can catch the ball. So I will be all over Spencer Ware today. I don't see any reason.
Oh, we lost Josh's connection there. Yeah, so sticking in that same game, I think you can stack Mahomes being how expensive he is with the spread like that, and a lot of people are unaware. I think I'm going to make some pivots away and go with Mahomes. Oh, there he's back. I was just talking about for people that maybe want to do some GPP pivots, where's going to be, with them being 14-point favorites against Oakland, who sucks against the run. If you want to, maybe go a little bit different direction, still hit on this high-scoring game, I think you can, put Mahomes in there with Hill, or like you mentioned, Conley earlier is a cheap, and then even Kelsey. Because if you get Mahomes, who's expensive, Kelsey, who's expensive, and a lot of people are going to be on Ware, I think you can separate yourself a little bit while still getting access to this high-scoring game today. And then I like running it back. You mentioned him earlier. I like it a lot this week is Marcel Aitman. He's been in there. He's got 15 targets in his first 2 games, the last 2 games since he's joined the lineup. He's only caught 7 of them. But, getting that kind of volume in a game where they're going to be down, they're going to have to throw a lot. I do like Bateman as a run back with your Kansas City stacks, and then even getting Derek Carr. If there's a spot that Derek Carr is going to get in there and maybe get back on the horse, because he's been very inconsistent this season. He's thrown for under 200 yards 5 times this season. But earlier in the season, his 3 of his first 4 games, he threw for over 300 yards, topping out at 437 yards, throwing the ball around 40, 45 times a game. So he does have that upside. And if there's any game that he's going to get back to that, I think it has to be this game, or else it could be like 57-3.
Yep. Chris, yeah. I don't see Oakland putting up much resistance, but
no.
Bateman is definitely their number 1 receiver at this point, and he's like 3,600. So.
Yep. And then the next game, I also like the 49.5 total. We got Minnesota going into New England this week. New England is a 5-point home favorite. Myself, as a Vikings fan, I definitely like where they're going and trending right now. I do like Cousins and Thielen. That's probably one of my top stacks this week, running them together. I think the best place to try and target against New England is either pass-catching running backs, so I do like Dalvin Cook as well, or slot guys. So it looks like Diggs, he was questionable, but it looks like he is going to be a go. And as we've seen throughout the season, Thielen is much better with Diggs in there. They'll try and shut down one of those guys. Like Thielen was attempted to be shut down last week by I think it's Alexander of the Packers. He's just making catches, like even in perfect coverage, he's making those catches. And just him and Cousins seem to be on the same page. I think this could be, I don't want to say a sneaky shootout because it's a 49.5 total, but I think this game could easily hit the over. And if it's going to, I think it's just going to be throw back and forth. So Thielen and Cousins, and then Cook's in there as well for me. And if it comes down to the point where you think maybe New England's going to shut down Thielen and Diggs, I do like getting Kyle Rudolph in there. He's been getting a little bit more run, kind of what we expected at the start of the season, getting 5+ targets, and he's catching quite a few, 7 for 63 last week. And at 3,600, I'll take 13 DraftKings points.
Agreed.
Anything else you'd like anything on the New England side?
No, not really. Thielen's like probably my top receiver of the week, with the exception of maybe Tyreek Hill, because I heard some stats about Tyreek gets like 13 targets a game or something when Watkins is out. Mm-hmm. So it's not, that's another reason why I'm not like completely sold on Conley today. I think Conley had a very good week with Watkins out, given the Rams, the nature of that game. They needed, to throw, and they literally couldn't throw everything to Tyreek. But other than that, Thielen is definitely my top guy. Diggs is going to end up playing. I guess Rudolph is in the conversation as a GPP dart, but the Patriots have, Burkhead's back now, so I don't like any of their running backs. Gronk is a decent play because of his price, but that's about it.
Right on. And then the final game of the slate today, we've got San Francisco at Seattle. Seattle's a 10-point home favorite, only a 45.5 total. So it kind of looks like it sets up for the Seattle run game today. I always like stacking Wilson and Lockett together. Got that touchdown upside. It kind of gives you access to the passing touchdowns. And then we've got Russell Wilson, who's been running it a little bit more lately. And then on the San Francisco side of things, I think Matt Breida is going to get some targets. He hasn't been getting that 5+ targets, so the upside's not really there. He's rushed for 100 yards in 2 straight weeks, but this is a tougher matchup for him for sure. So I think, he's going to be really low owned, so I think he can maybe be a pivot for GPPs. The price is also getting up there, so it's a little bit scary. When it comes to the Seattle side of things, looking at the running backs who are in a good spot today, which one do you prefer? Like, they got Carson, Davis, and Penny. Like, they've all been kind of getting some run lately. Carson, I think, has shown the most upside, but which one would you play or are you playing any of them?
Carson, hands down, and I love him with the Seahawks defense. Their offensive coordinator already said they want to establish the run this week. He said some weird comment about wanting to get Rashad Penny more involved, and he expected Rashad Penny to have a good game. I think that's just coach speak, and he's like sending up smoke screens. Chris Carson's completely healthy, and there's no reason for him to get less than 25 carries this week. So I love him for 5,200, especially
That pretty much covers everything. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If we didn't get to your questions, make sure to hit us up on Twitter. We got @RotoPros. Myself, it's @Jaeger_bombs9. Or if you're a RotoPros member, you can jump into the community chat. Like I said, we're there till the lineup lock. Skeleton lineups come out in about an hour here. And if you're not a member, make sure to get over to the rotopros.com website, top right-hand corner, click sign up, get your 2-week free trial. And then I'm sure you're going to grab one of our subscription packages after that, after you see what all goes on in there. Definitely ask the other members, and they'll give you some feedback about what we do there at rotopros.com. Josh, thanks for joining me this week. Let's go make some lineups and get some green screens.
Thank you, Chris. Awesome job hosting as usual. You did a hell of a description of what we offer here at RotoPros. I know it may seem too good to be true sometimes. We're a great price, and we really do help people win. So don't be fooled by the free shows and all that, because we got great people here, good intentions, and we just want to help. So
cash is king.
Yeah, cash is king. See you guys.
Later.